Hansel slipped the bread in his pocket, crushing it into mostly crumbs and sadly following behind his mother and beloved sister. Every few feet he dropped these bread crumbs on the ground. Soon their mother grew suspicious of Hansel. "Hansel, what is it that you think you are up to?" she shouted. Gretel, hearing this, quickly came up with a way to distract their mother. "Mother, mother, a wild forest fairy just flew into your hair." Panicked Hansel and Gretel's mother began to shake and squirm. She dishevelled her hair and screeched with fear. This gave Hansel time to catch up. "You children will be the death of me. Hurry along now," their mother grumbled. They travelling for a few more miles until they came to a very small clearing, even smaller than the previous one. "I'm putting you going to find a good place to chop. Both of you stay. I will come back for you shortly," she commanded and declared. So the children waited and waited and waited, but their mother never returned for them. Hansel offered Gretel what little bread was left. "This is not what you have been dropping on the ground," Gretel remembered. "I dropped most of our skipping stones last time. Mother led us down a different route today, and the stupid bird must have stolen all our stones. The breadcrumbs will be here in the morning, and we can follow them home," Hansel replied. "In the morning? Hansel, I will not stay here overnight," Gretel stated. Then, thinking about Hansel's panic last night, Gretel began. "What about wolves? What about Okay, no wolves, no bears, raccoons, squirrels. Let us go. I get. Let's just promise we will get out of here," Hansel said, interrupting his sister. They promised each other and then relaxed in very small glade, resting their feet and playing guessing games. Suddenly their noses were filled with an oddly sweet aroma. The children followed the wonderful scent. It grew stronger and more stronger and delicious. Mouths dripping with drool, Hansel and Gretel finally reached it. In front of their eyes and noses sat a house made entirely out of most delicious looking sweets. The roof was coated with fluffy white icing. Pink, sticky syrup drizzled and dripped along the sides of the dark chocolate exterior. A gumdrop door frame was sopping with sparkling icing sugar. A frothy milk chocolate river flowed under a gingerbread bridge that led to a gingerbread door, and a lollipop garden sat in front of the large crystallized sugar window. Hansel and Gretel stood stunned for a moment, and then, without caution or hesitation, they ran to the house and began stuffing their faces full of candy. "What little pretties have come to my house today?" screeched an odd voice. Hansel and Gretel stopped short and stared at one another. Each was messy and covered with candy and chocolate. "Ah!" the whispers shouted in unison. "Oh, little two ones to enjoy!" the voice screeched again. Hansel and Gretel turned and stared at a very small woman with scraggly hair wearing a long pink dress. She was very strange looking and smelled quite funny, a little sweet as well. The woman then invited Hansel and Gretel into her house. "There's more candy in here, fresh candy, my sweets," she called them, motioning them inside the house. Hansel immediately ran into the candy house, despite Gretel's cautious protests. After a while of standing outside, the old woman popped her jack-toothed head out of the little house and beckoned Gretel. Come in, my little very pretty." With this, alongside her idea of Hansel stuffing his face in the interior of the house, Gretel eventually followed inside. When Gretel entered the house, she immediately heard the gingerbread door shut heavily behind her. She turned around and noticed that the entire inside of the house was candy and was made of solid steel. Inside the house were bags and bags of brilliant gold coins. Gretel whispered, and whipped her head back round to see Hansel was locked up in a cage, hanging directly over the top of boiling water. This woman was no woman at all. She was an evil witch. "Now go sit at the table, little pretty," the evil witch commanded Gretel. "Help me slice up those chops. We are going to fatten him up," she exclaimed excitedly, pointing over to Hansel. Now Gretel understood that evil witch's plan. She had used her candy house to lure them inside so that she could eat them for dinner. Gretel thought all hope was lost as she sat at the large metal table slicing meat. She sobbed and sliced. She sliced and sobbed. Gretel filled 3 large buckets full with fatty food for the old woman to cook in her large boiling pot. Poor Hansel sat anxiously thinking of a way to escape. He watched as Gretel threw the scraps and bones into the separate pile beside the buckets of sliced meat. Suddenly Hansel was struck with a brilliant idea. He started to cough violently in an attempt to attract Gretel's attention. "Oh, quit your hacking! You best not be sick if I'm going to snack on you," the evil witch shrieked. All the commotion caused Gretel to look up in Hansel's direction. He motioned her to distract the evil witch. Seeing her poor brother's desperation, Gretel scoured her brain for a way to distract the evil witch. After a moment of thought, Gretel cried and dropped her knife. "Oh my!" she cried. "What do you think you're doing? Get back to work!" the evil, selfish witch shrieked once more. "I think I saw a dragon outside," Gretel cried, convincingly. Hansel held back laughter since Gretel's claim were getting little more and more ridiculous. "A dragon, you say?" the evil witch questioned. "Oh, goodness, that was most definitely a dragon I saw. It will surely burn the forest with its fiery breath, and then your candy house will be revealed to all the grown-ups in the land," Gretel declared. "How will you ever catch children if your candy house is not secret to the grown-ups? Who can no longer smell the sweetness of the candy?" Gretel questioned with a voice sweet as the syrup that dripped from the roof. With